Jurassic World was directed by Colin Trevorrow and stars a whole bunch of people and tells a story about how this time the park is now open. Yay! Remember, this is just my opinion, the right opinion, just my opinion. Let's start off with some of the positives. I find that this movie has some really good action sequences. Most of the acting is pretty well done. Chris Pratt's charisma, always gonna be good. Same goes to Bryce Dallas Howard. I find embodies the character of Claire very well. But I do have a few flaws in this movie. First off, I find that there's a bit too many subplots in this movie. There's one related to these children. I get the fact that they want to create a sense of vulnerability to these dinosaurs, but the problem is it just lasts quite a bit too long and takes a while to get the plot actually going. It could derail from the main plot without much forward momentum. Invalid the first act, and I do find that most of the first act takes place with them, which could make it seem like it was taking a bit too long to get this plot going. Now let's talk about some more of these subplots. One of them, oh my gosh, one of them was to weaponize raptors. That's another flaw that I have with this movie, is that this movie is crazy, and it takes some ideas that really don't make much sense, and uses them as plot devices, which also don't make much sense. This guy wants to weaponize raptors. That's such a bad idea. They're gonna kill both sides. And it could also derail from the main plot as well. I find that there's too many subplots in this movie. And really the whole plot itself, I find, doesn't carry the most weight. Partially because I find we don't exactly see exactly the problem. Apparently people are bored of dinosaurs. But there's like a packed crowd. So you're just told things that you're supposed to feel at certain times. As well as a solution to this makes the plot a bit predictable. Like, pretty predictable. Basically, the solution to bringing in more crowds is this new dinosaur. Well, we don't know how that's gonna turn out. Sadly, this movie is very predictable, and it suffers from any suspense, sadly, or sense of dread. We'll talk more about the sense of dread, because I find in some of the action and sense of dread scenes, is even though this movie is predictable, so it does remove some suspense. Another thing that happens in this movie that also removes suspense is, well, in Jurassic Park, when like the power went off, everyone was involved in it. Everyone was like doomed. Here, maybe some people were suffering, but then the kids were like watching Jimmy Fallon. So there could be like a total shift in emotion that just felt very messy, and it could make it a bit confusing on what you're supposed to feel, because it just dramatically switched from scene to scene. So that could also remove a bit of suspense. I also find that this movie follows a bit of too much of cliches and tropes without much setup that they just feel need to be in this movie, which could be damaging to this movie. For example, there's this romance between Claire and Chris Pratt's character that I find was very rushed and didn't exactly have the most setup. I mean, like, the character of Claire is supposed to be like a bad human or something, and then all of a sudden she cares about her nephews? Like, where did that come from? Also, the fact that this new dinosaur that they invented has like all these cool powers. Like the Indominus Rex has like camouflage power. Ooh! Uses it in like the first action scene. Never really uses it again. It could have been pretty useful to use some of those powers. Also, I find the same problem that I have with The Lost World. If this film is supposed to be nasty and mean, and some of these like heroic sacrifices and what are supposed to be gut-wrenching deaths, I find they didn't last, which is one of the problems, that sometimes they show all this death in the most dramatic ways, but they don't really exactly sit with it. They just make it be like, oh, that's scary, right? Without much emotional reactions from our lead characters, especially this babysitter.
But we don't know why she was killed in the most horrific of ways.
Jesus, what did she do to deserve that? Nothing, I guess. Wasn't your ex-girlfriend a British woman named Zara? I mean, I don't see what that has to do with anything.
Same thing with when the raptors die, except for Blue. One big problem I have with this movie is the characters. And here, the characters were decent. I just find that most of them we didn't exactly have reasons to root for them. At times it could feel like spectacles for spectacle's sake, sadly. But there was one character who, the things that happened here did deepen this character, the character of Claire, but I even found her arc was a bit rushed. But the big issue with is they try to give these characters backstory and reasons for us to root for them, but the problem is they don't exactly mention them again. Like with the two kids, they don't exactly go the most places with these kids. All they really give these kids is one of them has crushes on people and the other one's like a genius. The problem is they try to give the characters backstory and depth in one of the scenes where they're talking about the like supposed divorce of their parents and they're all crying, and it could give some backstory. The problem is they never really mention it again and they just left it there. So it could feel like things in here are incomplete. The last thing is, even though like I understand that some of these ideas in Jurassic Park are crazy, and really the whole idea of Jurassic Park is crazy just from the first one, but the problem is those had reasoning and those had intriguing thoughts to support and like a double-sided viewpoint of it. Like the first movie is all about is bringing back the dinosaurs necessarily good, and that created all these deep and meaningful scenes that supported it. Here there is some of that, but when like everything goes wrong, they don't really bring it up again, so it could make this movie feel a bit inconsequential. There are a few intriguing thoughts at the start relating to why the Indominus Rex shouldn't be a thing, but then they don't exactly bring things up later, so it just feels unfinished.
Because the rest of the movie is literally just escape from dinosaurs and they don't bring up that thought again.
Overall, I was disappointed with Jurassic World, and I'll give Jurassic World a C-. Quick soundtrack review. The music here is done by Michael Giacchino, who I've been a fan of ever since his work for Star Trek 2009. I love that score. Oh, did I just give a spoiler? Whoopsies. Anyway, so what do you think about the score? I love some of the nostalgia and callbacks, and most of the action things were good. Sure, some of them could feel a bit generic and just like sound. And some of the cues, especially Owen's theme, I was a bit disappointed by. Overall, it was a great theme, and all the references to the older ones made you go, oh, my childhood. 9 out of 10.